Go Jackers.
What's going on, everyone, and welcome to WreckTalk. Today we're going to be breaking down linebackers, that's coaches, who's in, who's out, players in the transfer portal, players that we recruited in the last class, who I think is going to make an impact for us. We're going to break down every linebacker on the roster, and by the time we go through this entire series, we will have looked at every coach who's an on-the-field coach and every player on the roster. Guys, you're not going to get this anywhere else, I don't think, that you're going to have a breakdown of every player and every coach. So what I plan to do, there's 10 weeks leading up until the first game. Every Tuesday we will do a breakdown of a different position group. Now there's only 7. Quarterback, offensive line, wide receiver, running back. Then you've got defensive line, linebackers, defensive backs. So every Tuesday we'll do that. Every Friday will be a different video on whatever's going on in Georgia Tech football, Georgia Tech news that we need to talk about. Now, I've got most of those planned out leading up to the start of the season. If you're not a member of the channel and there's a video that you really want to see done, become a member of the channel. I'll add you to the members-only Discord group where you can communicate with me and other members and make suggestions for videos. And as long as they make sense, I'll do it. You also get custom emojis for the live chat. You get a little icon denoting that you're a member of the channel for the live shows. Cool stuff. So also, if you want to donate to the channel, there's a PayPal link and a CashApp link in the description. Someone was generous enough to leave a sizable donation after the live show Monday night. Those are much appreciated. I haven't got it all set up yet. I just bought some more audio equipment. I'm going to do some custom tracks myself. I wasn't super pleased with what I hired someone to do, and I said, hey, I know enough about music. I can make my own Georgia Tech tracks for hype videos and other videos and whatnot, so be looking out for that. So let's get into it. Now, it's no secret that the biggest position where we've lost due to graduation, NFL, what have you, is at linebacker. The defense was the cornerstone bedrock of this team last year, and the bedrock of our defense really was the linebackers. We had 2 outstanding linebackers in Ely and Charlie Thomas. And when you look at their stats, it's like, wow, I don't really know how we're going to replace this. And I don't even know if the goal should be to replace the production we got out of these 2 guys at linebacker. I think the goal is to get close to that. Maybe defensive line steps up a little more, or the defensive backfield where for the production we were getting at linebacker. But before we get into stats and all that, from what I've seen most of the time, we like to run a 4-3 defense. If you're not super knowledgeable into football, that means 4 down linemen on defense, 3 linebackers. Now it looks though like it's interesting. We like to have one linebacker that's kind of a hybrid defensive end linebacker, and then sometimes we like to play more of a defensive back linebacker, and we kind of rotate them based on kind of what defense we want to run. And I think that's why our defense has been able to be as effective as it was for us last year when Thacker really got to, in my opinion, run things the way he wanted to as DC. Having the flexibility in your players, having these hybrid players, and kind of let your defense breathe in and out with what the offense is doing. So I kind of didn't notice that while I was watching last year. I tend to be a little more offensive minded, but cool nonetheless. So obviously we lose Coach Boogie, Coach Seymour to Marshall. He was promoted as, or not promoted, but hired as their defensive coordinator. He was in the running, I think, for On Three. I think he might have even won it linebacker coach of the year, and well deserved. We were going to move him to special teams coordinator. We had already hired Kevin Scherer to come in as the defensive coordinator. But I think Marshall's getting an outstanding coach and defensive coordinator in Coach Seymour. Let's talk about Coach Scherer. Kevin Scherer coming in as co-defensive coordinator and linebacker coach, and a guy that has a ton of experience at and this is going to be a theme as we're breaking down coaches on this staff, seen the heights of high school football in Georgia, Alabama, these kind of top-tier recruiting grounds, and in collegiate football. So Kevin Scherer, his alma mater is Alabama. He graduated in 1996, played tight end from, I think like 93 to 95, ended up graduating in 96, and then got his feet wet into coaching in really the elite Alabama high schools. Now, there's a few states in the country that high school football is just different. It's another level. I would probably say California, Texas, Georgia, Florida, Alabama. It's just that is a different level of how serious people take high school football. I mean, look, I can even remember when I played and I was named like starting quarterback, and like business people from the community talking to me, like telling me how important things was, this season was and whatnot. Like it's a whole nother level. And I'm not downing football in other states. It's different in the states I just named. So he starts off in Tuscaloosa County High School as a defensive assistant. He was there from 96 to 97 and won a state title with them as a defensive assistant. And I think I'm going to start a ticker for like national titles, national title rings a coach has, and high school state championship rings coaches have. So there's one for state championship Alabama high school coach. He was then the defensive coordinator at a school you guys might have heard of in Hoover, Alabama, Hoover High School. Won 2 state championships. One, I believe, as a defensive assistant, and then one as their defensive coordinator. Hoover, Alabama is like that high school is more like a small college. Like you'll see them actually on ESPN. They're one of the premier high schools in the country. I would probably equate them to like a Buford in Georgia. I mean, these are high schools that like recruit players, right? Like the number 1 recruit in the country that Georgia just had, I forget his name, but he's transferring to Buford. And evidently this is like the 3rd high school that he's played for. So, again, that's a whole other level of high school that recruits players. Whatever, not the point of this video. He then goes back to his alma mater as the director of player development at the University of Alabama, where he wins 2 national titles as the director of player development for Nick Saban. So, boom. We've got, with one coach, we've got 3 Alabama high school state championships and 2 national championships for the dynasty that was University of Alabama. He then goes as the DC for a year for the 2013 season. He's the defensive coordinator and defensive backs coach. They were second in conference at South Alabama. Did I say that? He was defensive coordinator, defensive back coach at South Alabama. They were second in conference in total defense in the Sun Belt, averaging 384 yards per game, 24 points against. He's then hired by our good old boys at the University of Georgia. Mark Richt hires him as outside linebacker coach. He actually is a part of the transition when they quote unquote part ways with Mark Richt. He was 100% fired. Kirby keeps them on, though. Now, as much trash as I might want to talk about Kirby Smart and the University of Georgia, Kirby Smart is, an elite. You might, I mean, it's hard to say that Kirby's not the best defensive mind in the country right now. And that he kept Kevin Scherer on staff, I think says something to Kevin Scherer's understanding and ability to coach defense. He's picked away when Jeremy Pruitt takes the head coaching job at Tennessee in the 2018-2019 seasons. He brings on Kevin Scherer as his defensive coordinator at the University of Tennessee, which I think is also a testament to just how well-respected Kevin Scherer is in the elite minds of defensive football in college. Jeremy Pruitt was kind of a disaster head coach, but is a fantastic defensive mind. 2018, not super impressive as a defensive coordinator. They go 5-7. They're ranked 77th in defense. But in 1 year, he's able to improve them to giving up 21.7 points a game and the 29th ranked defense in the country. And they go 8-5 that year. After he's hired by the New York Giants, where he's their offensive linebackers coach, and is fired after the 21 season. Don't know much about his stint with the Giants. Maybe the NFL just wasn't for him. It's not for many people who try to make this transition from college coach to NFL coach. But I just think that this is a really good hire. There's a reason he's been named co-defensive coordinator. And again, you get kind of a double whammy with him with the entrenched Alabama recruiting ties and a ton of experience at the top levels of college football. So I'm definitely excited to see what he does. Let's look at the linebackers we're losing. We talked about Ely and Thomas. So Ely recorded 57 solo tackles, 61 assists, 9.5 tackles for loss, 3.5 sacks, 2 fumble recoveries, and 4 forced fumbles. Thomas had 71 solo tackles, 41 assists, 10.5 tackles for loss, 2 sacks, 2 fumble recoveries, and 2 forced fumbles. So that's 6 forced fumbles between these two players. And then I should have done this better before, but let's look at this. So 61 plus 57. So that's 118 tackles for Ely plus 71 plus 41. Just these two guys account for 230 tackles and 4 turnovers. I mean, that is an immense amount of production to try and replace. And like I said before, I don't think it should be the goal to just replace, we need 230 tackles from our linebacker core. But let's look at who can step up. Who can we have to replace these guys? So one, before we get into transfers, who do we still have on our roster that can step up? Trinelius Tatum. And I believe during the spring game, his mother or grandmother sat behind us. I didn't get to talk with them or really get a good look, so I'm not sure. I just know when he was named linebacker, he got the linebacker award in the spring game, and this lady went nuts, and she had to be related to this kid. If you don't remember this kid, though, he is a 4-star. He was a 4-star in the 2020 class, number 18 linebacker in the nation, 24 recruit in the state. So big-time player in Georgia high school football. Last year he had 18 solo tackles, 13 assists, 2.5 tackles for a loss, 1 sack, and 1 forced fumble. And I would say this is a kid that I anticipate taking a major step up. I would think it would be Andre White, Braylon Oliver, and Trinelius Tatum that are going to compose the 3 core starters in our defense. And it seems like Andre White is a guy that might be able to kind of play a hybrid role. We'll get into some other kids. I mean, not really, but he has the athleticism to play in a few different spots. Now, let's talk about the transfers we're bringing in. Obviously, Andre White is a kid from Harrisburg, Pennsylvania. He's a 4-star recruit. He was number 14th linebacker in the nation. He's 6 foot, 230 pounds. Played at Texas A&M under Jimbo Fisher. Had 19 solo tackles last year, 16 assists, 1 sack, 1 forced fumble. This is a kid, like many that we've brought in, that have a very high ceiling that for whatever reason they just have not kind of been able to reach their potential. And the great thing, especially for linebackers, I think Kevin Scher and Andrew Thacker are two guys that are going to be able to get the absolute most and help kids reach their potential in this linebacker core. I mean, who really knew about Ely and Thomas before last year, right? I mean, these are kids that we were able to develop. Both of them, I think, are on NFL rosters right now. Don't remember exactly where they went. Andre White, probably, if you just talk about pure raw talent, most talented kid on the roster. But it's really, between him and Tatum and maybe Braylon Oliver. I mean, these are three kids that are all really talented. Let's talk about Braylon Oliver. Braylon Oliver played at Douglasville High School. He was the 6A Defensive Player of the Year out of Douglasville High School, number 42 linebacker in the nation. His brother, Brandon Oliver, played for Georgia Tech, played wide receiver. Don't think he saw the field much, might have played special teams. He doesn't have any stats in the database, but his brother played from 2013 to 2015. Last year, so he's coming in from Minnesota. And by the way, both Andre White and Braylon Oliver only have 1 year of eligibility remaining. We talked about this on the live show Monday. So we're going to be in the same position of replacing two key players on defense more than likely. I'm assuming they're both going to be, starters who are major contributors, which means as we go down the list, we're going to have kids that really step up, that are younger and, get good game experience and make an impact. Last year, Braylon Oliver had 14 solo tackles, 19 assists, 1.5 tackles for loss, and half a sack. And I expect, both of these kids' numbers to – I'm not saying they're going to be like Ely and Thomas, but I think between the three, we can account for that. So Braylon Oliver, 6 foot, 230 pounds, big kid, played in the spring game. Andre White did not play in the spring game. Really physical kid. I mean, I think this is the kid that could really shut the door, on some good running backs, able to get pressure on the quarterback, just a headsy, tough player. This is something we've heard over and over again by Key and other coaches on his staff, this toughness. Braylon Oliver, Andre White, Trinilius Tatum, all kids that really embody the toughness factor. So the last kid coming in as a transfer is Austin Dean. This is a kid I'm really, as far as transfers, just don't know a ton about. He's 6'2", 225 pounds. He's from Tampa, Florida. He was a 3-star, played for Rutgers for 2 seasons. Played in 20 games across those 2 seasons, but didn't start. So I guess he was a kid that was rotated in. I guess not necessarily the worst thing, but you definitely like a kid that's, a bona fide starter coming in. But maybe, he can take a big step up in his development and make a major impact. He had 19 tackles last year as a sophomore, including 6 and a career high against number 11 Penn State. So, again, he has 2 years of eligibility left, so it would really be nice if he was able to take a big step up, make an impact, and where we have another year, and could be kind of him and Tatum, the cornerstone of the Tech defense coming into the year after next. All right, so let's look now at recruits. The rest of these kids are going to be really young. These are kids coming in off the last recruiting class. Jacob Cruz, who's a teammate of Gabriel Fortson, who I think was the highest rated recruit in the 2023 class. He's an interior offensive lineman. But Jacob Cruz is 6'3", 215 pounds. This is definitely a kid that fits that hybrid linebacker defensive end. So you can pull him back to kind of play a traditional linebacker role, or put him in a 3-point stance, or bring him right up to the line to play that defensive end role that it seems like Thacker likes to do with his linebackers. It's from North Cobb Christian. He was a 3-star, number 61 outside linebacker in the country, and the AA Player of the Year in the state of Georgia. So this is a kid I would expect to at least get some snaps, a few snaps a game, or is rotated in, right? Especially with the direction that offenses seem to be going in modern college football, with a lot of tempo and a lot of pace. We're going to have to rotate, kids in. Next kid I want to talk about, Kyle Efford. If I remember right, this was a kid that we were really happy to get. He's a kid out of Decula, 6'2", 230 pounds. This kid just seems like an athlete, a winner, and a baller. His senior year, he counted for 116 total tackles, 5 tackles for loss, 1 forced fumble, 1 fumble recovery, 3 interceptions, and 1 pick six. Now, he also played running back, rushed for 1,180 yards, and 20 touchdowns. So that's what I'm talking about. The kid just seems like an athlete. Maybe he's a little bit underrated, in my opinion. 3-star, 106 linebacker in the country, and 110th overall recruit in the state of Georgia. I expect him to see the field as well and get rotated in. He's a kid I'm definitely a young kid. Him and Cruz I'm going to have my eye on. Next on the list, linebacker Ashton Heflin out of Noonan, Georgia, 3-star, 6 foot, 220 pounds. Senior year had 122 total tackles, 9 for loss, and was a 3-time all-region player. A kid that doesn't necessarily have eye-popping stats out of high school, but definitely a kid that might get a few snaps, might be a special teams contributor. Like all of these kids, I expect to get on the field in special teams on some capacity. And Lord knows that we need to make some major strides forward in special teams coming up this season. All right. Next, we talked about Heflin. Nakari Ashley. Nakari Ashley, kid out of Marietta, Georgia. Big body kid at 6'3", 205 pounds. Another kid that seems to fit the bill of a I missed 2 kids. Of a defensive end linebacker hybrid. I don't think he was rated. His senior year, he had 48 solo tackles, 28 assists, 2 forced fumbles, 3 block kicks. So keep in mind what I said about special teams. Boy, it would really be nice to flip the script and instead of getting punts blocked, getting punts returned against us, block punts, block kicks. So he had 2 field goal blocks, 1 punt blocked, and 4 sacks. Now, I skipped over 1 transfer, Paul Mola. And this kid was in the composite rankings rated as one of the better linebackers in the transfer class. Now, this is where I am really glad to about be out of kids who have this COVID year because he played for 4 years for Notre Dame. He was on Notre Dame's roster for 4 years and played at Idaho for a year and somehow has 2 years of eligibility remaining. Now, I can't make sense of that, but he has 2 years of eligibility remaining. He's 6 foot tall, 220 pounds. In the 2017 class, he was a 3-star first-team All-Indiana. This kid was a stud in the state of Indiana. He was recruited by Notre Dame. He played in 23 games for them, but his playing time waned leading into the 21 season. In fact, I don't know that he played a game in the 21 season for Notre Dame. In his whole time there, he had 12 solo tackles, 10 assists, 1 tackle for loss, 1 fumble recovery, 1 forced fumble in 4 years. So, again, not necessarily the most eye-popping stats. Probably why he transferred to Idaho. We had an okay season. He had 8 tackles, 2 assists, or 8 solo tackles, 2 assists, 2 for loss, and 1 forced fumble. Again, with the kid having 2 years of eligibility, it would really be nice for him to step up. I don't necessarily and I'm just looking at his stats. I don't have time to look at highlights or film from, every kid that is on our roster, even transfers. So I don't necessarily get him being kind of a top linebacker in the transfer portal. But hopefully a kid that can be developed, and a kid that's going to see a lot of playing time. Him, I would think Paul Mola, Austin Dean, Andre White, Braylon Oliver, and Tatum, Trinelius Tatum. Those 5 are going to be in that main rotation, with Tatum, Andre White, and Braylon Oliver being starters. Also, another kid, Tyson Maguez. I apologize if I'm butchering that name. A kid that's been on the roster for, I think he has 2 years of eligibility or 3 left. He's 6'2", 216 pounds. From Fairburn, Georgia, as part of the 2019 class where he was a 3-star, number 59 outside linebacker in the country, 75th rated player in the state of Georgia, and was the Region 5 6A Player of the Year. Another kid, so between these 6 would probably be our core rotation of linebackers, where maybe some of the younger kids are rotated in, far more sparingly, taking more of a special teams role. Which, speaking of special teams, in 2020, mainly played special teams. Unfortunately, in the 2021 season spring, he had a season-ending injury. 2022 didn't see the field a lot, had 1 assisted tackle in the Florida State game, probably when it started getting out of hand. I'd have to look back at it. But another kid that I would imagine sees a lot of playing time coming into this season. All right. And I think that wraps it up. Like I said, I would think that the core group of linebackers, that I think between all of them we can get something like the production we had out of the 2 in Thomas and Ely. I imagine probably Tatum, Oliver, and White being starters, where Mola, Dean, and Tyson Maguez are rotated in with regularity. And I would think you see Jacob Cruz and Kyle Efford with some playing time too. Now, I don't know how they want to do their red shirt, so they might redshirt Cruz, Efford, or any of these kids. I mean, they'll redshirt some of them. I kind of see, as far as a young kid, though, Kyle Efford seeing the field a lot as far as the young kids are concerned. And I'm just excited to see what Kevin Scherer can do as a guy with a lot of experience, and Thacker, who I think is more of a linebacker-oriented DC. So, yeah, I hope you guys enjoy that. That's kind of a long video. But, yeah, you guys have a good one, and I'll see you Friday.